us all tone down and hope that they will never see the truth around. Another promise, another scene, another package lie to keep us trapped in greed. Another green bells wrapped around our minds, an endless red tape to keep the truth confined. They will not force us. They will stop degrading us. They will not control us. We will be victorious.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Matt, I see you first. You're amazing. Where is Miguel? He's always first. What the heck, Miguel? Seriously, Matt beat you tonight. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is yet another special show. I know I say that kind of often, but it really is. And so it's another show I'm doing about Temujin. If you've seen any of my other shows about him or interviewing people in reference to him, you probably know his story, or at least the basics of. For over 4 years, I've been interviewing Temujin from prison. So you can find those all on my YouTube as well. But tonight I have Jason Usey, who I'm so hyped to have because, well, he is the host of podcasts that I've listened to for quite some time. And also, he is doing a documentary about our dear friend Temujin, and I'm so excited to see it. Thanks so much, Jason, for joining.
Joy, thank you so much for having me. It'll start as a podcast and a book, but yeah, I'd like the plan is to move into documentarian space, and yeah, no, I'm very, very thrilled. I've followed your work, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be here with you tonight.
Absolutely. I will do absolutely anything for Temujin and Paula
Yeah,
without question. Um,
you're amazing.
so first of all, you do Santa May Be a Criminal, which one of my friends told me about, and they're like, Joy, this guy is analytical, philosophical, and he's sarcastic. And I was like, oh my God, he's me. I need to check him out. And then
Oh,
Paula brought you up one day, and I was like, I love that podcast. So,
oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. Like, no, it was sort of I've worked in the space for a little while, just editing podcasts. I produced another podcast previously, and it's kind of like just it was during the pandemic, and I just want to have some fun. I wanted to like give a little bit of a different spin on sort of like the true crime trope genre,
right.
and it was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun for me. It's not over. We've had a little bit of a hiatus just because of everything that's been going on.
Right.
But it continues. The story will continue, and thankfully, based on that show, I was asked to do more serious stuff, which I always felt very, very nervous about.
Yeah.
And I sort of moved into missing persons. I have a show called Missing in a Moment that's just launched recently, and those shows will continue. And then also looking at Temujin's case, like you, I haven't interviewed him that long, but or at all, frankly. But I started following this case about 4 years ago, and it just kind of came to a point where I was like, if I can get one person to hear anything that we have to say, and as I've told a lot of people, I'm riding on the backs of giants like you and Paula and all the people that have been doing this work for a lot longer than I have. And so if I can offer a voice to help get him out, that's what I'm focused on.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that so much. And Temujin said to me today, he said, please tell him I love him.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love him
it-
so much. He's. I mean, but there. I will try tonight not to get emotional, but as you know, he has such a pure heart. He has done so much for so many people while he's been in there. And I said in an interview last week when I was up in Michigan that imagine what he could do if he was not caged. And I truly believe that his capacity for the humanity he has been totally limited. And I just I'll say this off the jump. First of all, let's give some. Scott Macklin was murdered that day. We all know that Temujin did not do that. He was gunned down in the St. Clair County Community College parking lot, SC4, on November 5th, 1986. And, his family has not gotten justice. Temujin certainly has not gotten justice. And it's a very, very concerning thing to me. And I always want to mention Scott. He didn't deserve it. And I also want to say too that I'm not typically a wrongful conviction person. This is not my typical sort of way that I move. But seeing this case and studying this case for so long, and I hate that it took me so long to actually come around and say something. I regret that, but I can absolutely say I love Temujin very, very much. I love Paula very, very much. He could not have a better advocate. And I'm thrilled to put my small voice in with your voice and every other advocate that is crying out for justice to be served in this case.
as for someone who's produced other true crime podcasts and things like that, what was it about Temujin's case? And I can think of like 100 things you're probably going to say. But what was it about Temujin's case that you were like, holy shit, come on, this is insanity? Or to coin, your term, inconceivable, because it freaking is. Was there like one thing that jumped out at you that you're like, hold up, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's one thing. I think it was a culmination of everything. I mean, certainly, I had the great fortune of going up to Michigan last week, and I did that drive. In a 2023 or 2024 rental, whatever it was.
From Atlanta, right? Or from Georgia?
I flew into Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Me and my girlfriend Carly, we went to Yale, stayed in Yale, Michigan, and then we went to Port Huron, and then we drove from Port Huron to up to the Escanaba area. And I'll tell you, that's still a haul. That's a haul, in 2024 terms. So I can imagine in 1986 terms, 1986 terms, I can imagine what that was with, bad roads, snowy conditions, blizzard conditions, 20 plus mile or 20 miles an hour more speed limit. The conditions, we can't duplicate the conditions. Like, it's impossible.
Right.
But what I would say is that the absolute insanity that was the initial sort of thrust of the conversation in the case is preposterous, inconceivable, and then the way that they shifted, because they knew they couldn't get a conviction that way because it was not believable. Those are the things that really stood out to me. And then like like you said, there are 100 things that when you start to actually, like, if you look at this from a surface level, there are a couple things that are like, what? But if you actually go into it, like, there are 100 things or more that you're just like, this just does not make sense, and we have to make sense of it. And my hope is that, we are like rooting out that truth. We are following that thread, and I mean, that's just my focus on it.
I think that the way I refer to Temujin's case is like the epitome of going down a rabbit hole. Like, if you made this
Absolutely.
into an actual film, like not a documentary, but a film, I'd be like, this is a comedy. This is
Correct.
absurd. This would never happen. Like, talking about teleportation in
Yes.
court and stuff. Like, come on. That is so not feasible. And when you look at the documents and realize, oh my God, like this literally did happen, it's so mind blowing. And just in case I do have some new viewers and you're not familiar with the case, the reason that we were discussing the roads and the weather and such is because Temujin is accused of doing a murder that was literally over 400 miles away. Than he has over a dozen witnesses that
Right.
prove that he was over 400 miles away. And they said maybe it was teleportation. They said maybe he rented a private plane, even though the airport was closed, and he
No
was on
records of it.
welfare and had no money, and there were no
Right.
cell phones, and it is so outrageous and
It's
so
what I'm sorry, it's so, yeah, I am totally reflective of your passion on this. It's so wild to
it is.
see what they try to get away or what they have gotten away with so far, unless we
Yeah.
all raise our voices that this is absolutely incomprehensible, that anybody, any one of us, you, me, anybody, our family members, anybody could have this happen to them. And
Yeah.
I literally cannot believe what they got away with, and it is really, really troubling. And
It is.
in driving, and I will tell you, driving that route, driving that length, and it's probably not the same route. I drove the fastest one, and I was exhausted at the end of it. So he was supposed to drive it twice and come
Right.
back and be just fine and act like nothing happened. Like, it makes no sense. It drives me insane. And
No.
um and I gosh, I just wish that, I mean, I wish he had better counsel,
Yeah.
because that is very, very, that was obviously a bad situation. And just knowing him and knowing Paula and knowing people like you in the space, who can actually see truth and speak it to life, is what we all have to do. And yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to step over you, but it's just
Oh, no,
I
no.
get really passionate about it, just
Jack
like
and
you.
I were the same way. We were like, just like, like sometimes you just want to scream or punch a wall. Like, how could this be happening? And
Yeah,
why is it happening to such a beautiful person?
right.
As far as the trial goes, to people who don't know, Temujin was provided a public an
Public
attorney
defender, yeah.
because he had no money, and he was recommended a specific attorney who turned out to be friends with the judge, and you know the whole thing. And this attorney was actually disbarred for being a cokehead. Also, they did so many things he should have objected to and never
Yeah.
did, like laying out a table of all these pseudo weapons that weren't even Temujin's and weren't even used in the crime. And you know, there were just so many things that would have gotten a mistrial like that if he
Yeah.
actually cared. So I started the first time I interviewed Temujin, I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking in my mind, I don't know if he's innocent yet, but I know at the very least he deserves a new trial. Because I was reading about the trial and I'm like, no, no, this is like illegal in like 15 ways. So that's kind of how I approached it.
Sure.
Then it took me talking to him one time and I'm like, nah, I I am now dedicated to
Right.
getting you out.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I mean, we talked to probably, I don't know, 100 people when we were in Michigan last week.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah, and the like most people didn't even know about the case. Most of them, did not had no idea, which was troubling, which meant, okay, we have to continue to raise our voice and say, like, take a look at this.
Do you think it's
The
'cause it's 40 years old?
I do. Yeah, I do think that it's
Yeah,
been so long. Um, but I mean, that's all the more reason for us to actually raise our voices like
absolutely.
more mightily, because it's been that long and it's a grave injustice on him and the Macklin family. The other the one person uh, we saw uh, more dirty bathrooms at gas stations than we saw people that knew about this case. But that one person said, uh, "Isn't that the one where they got the wrong guy?" That was his reaction, right? He lived in Port Huron. We were in Port Huron. He lived there, and that was his reaction to it. And he said, "Wasn't there?" And I said, "Well, that's kind of why I'm here." And then he
Mhm.
said, "As I recall, there was more evidence of him up north than there was of him being down here." And I was like, "A lot more."
Yeah,
Um, those are the kind of things that I think we have to really echo in Temujin's case. The the facts are very clear to me. The
yeah,
motivations behind the facts that were presented, or the alternate facts that the prosecution presented, those are less clear to me, and I won't speculate on that stuff. But I think I think it's very, very clear if you look at the facts of the case, what was sworn in testimony. If you take away Philip Joplin, so Philip Joplin was a jailhouse informant that ended up getting inducements for his testimony, later recanted. If you look at the fact that the pilot or he was a pilot, I guess, but the pilot that claimed that Temujin could have chartered this plane despite the fact he had no money, and like, what? I mean, I wish I could just roll up to an airport at 5 o'clock in the morning and fly wherever I wanted to without any money.
yeah,
That'd
but
be
you can't
amazing.
bring your cell phone because they didn't exist then. So
Correct,
good luck.
right? Correct. Yeah, no kidding. Um, and that individual ended up being tied to the prosecution. Like, there are so many things about this case that are an absolute abandonment of what I believe the justice system is supposed to be. And like, I care very much because I want to believe that our justice system is just. What I see in this case is that it was absolutely not just for Temujin. Now, I don't look at wrongful conviction cases ever. So I don't know how many more of these there are, but I'm sure there are a lot, you know. So my thought process is, like, we focus on Temujin now, and that's why I appreciate you and hold you up in such high esteem, and that you've been doing this for a long time. As far as I'm concerned, Paula is a hero. His
She
wife,
absolutely is.
Paula Kensu, is an absolute hero. I tell everybody that she is a rock star, and I've told him he's lucky to have her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that I would, if I was in the same situation, if any of us were in the same situation, we would only be so lucky to have someone who fights
Yeah.
as hard for him as she does. So, you know, again, just coming into this, a few years ago as a neophyte, just even just walking into it is just like, what? And that's the other thing too. The people that didn't know about the case that I had the privilege of talking to about the case, every one of them, their jaw was like, what? Like, that's not possible. And I'm like, well, it is, because he's sitting in Macomb prison right now for almost 38 years. On, November 13th was when he was arrested.
Yeah.
And they, never had free air
Yeah.
since that time. And it is just, it's inconceivable, and it is enraging to me that this is where we are.
Absolutely. And, I can't fathom being one of those people that didn't know about this and then hearing it and realizing, holy crap, it's my government that actually is in charge of this. It's my governor. It's my, state that is in charge of this and doing
Right.
this. I think that would even be even more of a rude awakening.
Oh, for sure. I totally think so too. I mean, and I think it's a wake up call for all governments, that all state governments that have to deal with DOCs around the country, that there are more cases like this out there. I know that to be, I don't know it to be a fact. I haven't looked at the other ones, but I feel pretty confident there are, because if there's this one, and if this one is that egregious, there has to be more. And sure, it totally erodes the trust in the government. Like, if the government did what's right, maybe it would do something to bring back some trust in the government, if it's not too far gone now. At the end of the day, it is really, really, it's just so concerning to me that that this has happened with the preponderance of evidence that he was not there.
Yeah.
It's a scary thought. Like, the overreach in so many ways here is really, really concerning. And it's, I just hope that people, all I tell people is just look at the facts. Look at the facts and decide for yourself. Because I promise you, if I did not look at the facts and say, oh, he's absolutely innocent, there's no way on earth I would have gone down this rabbit hole, like you said, because it is like, once you start in, you open up. It's like, like an onion, like you just take a layer off, and it's like, oh, there's something else. And it's just this crazy, crazy sort of like maze you go down. But at the end of the day, you have a guy who was murdered in the middle of a parking lot at his college. And then you have a guy who is sat in prison wrongfully for almost 40 years. And the only thing I care about is honoring both of their legacies, sharing both of their stories, and making sure that we try to right a 4 decades long injustice.
Absolutely. One of the things that Temujin was saying is, for those who aren't familiar, he is in Michigan, which is where Governor Gretchen Whitmer is in Michigan. And one of the things that Temujin, often talks about when we're on the phone is he talks about, who has come out in support of him. And Gretchen Whitmer's own father is asking her to free Temujin. Gretchen's own staff supports Temujin. Unfortunately, money always gets in the way of, justice. So I can't even, like, I have no idea how I could even count the amount of emails and phone calls and letters we have sent. Thousands, without question. And it's like, wouldn't your life just be easier if you just did this for us, please? Please. Right. But I think the idea of them letting him out means that inadvertently, at the very least, they are acknowledging they messed up.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably very true. I mean, at the end of the day, like, people are about survival and ego, and I think that plays a part in it. While you all might know a little bit more about that sort of political pressure and the money stuff than I do. I really think that once again, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. It's not without influence, right? And the hope is, for me, is to restore the faith in that system and in government in as much as we can. I mean, I knew there's always going to be some, hesitation to that. And I share that probably more than most people. But I do think that there was some sort of undue influence that influenced this case, and that has continued to keep Temujin behind bars in a cage. And the other thing, I talked to a lot of people about this last week. The amount of good that he's done, like I said earlier, the amount of good that he's done while he's been there, just imagine the exponential return of goodness and hope, and how much he could influence the world if that guy, this guy right here behind me, if he was out there, because he is one of the most charismatic, intellectual, caring people I have ever had the privilege to be around, to talk to. And so it is an absolute travesty to me that he has not been able to share that with the world, and the world is a lesser place for him not being able to fully explore that over the last 40 years.
Absolutely. I talk to him about that quite often, and to give you guys an idea of who Temujin is, and I usually give my guests a disclaimer, but I'm actually 80% blind. So my blindness as a disability, impedes me from seeing much of anything. And Temujin will literally call me from prison and be like, "Hi, sweetie, how's your eyes? How are your eyes doing? Did you try that new vitamin I recommended and stuff?" And I'm like, wait, hold on. You're in prison, wrongfully convicted, and you are calling me to check on me medically. Am I understanding this right? Because I'm like, he reaches out and cares about me more than people in my intimate life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's so genuine, and it's so sweet. And the way he gets so excited about puppies, and it's like you think of, oh, this guy's in prison and he has long hair, and oh my God, he's so scary. And then you talk to him, and first of all, he is brilliant, intimidatingly brilliant. Slow down when you're talking. What?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no,
so lovable.
I mean, you can't help but love him. And exactly what you're saying. Paula sent me an article, I don't know, a month ago or so, that Jack Lawrence from 1 Minute Remaining posted, and he said in that article that the first thing that Temujin ever asks is, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And it's not about him, it's about the other person. And I mean, seeing his advocacy while he's been in there, seeing the way he has put others before himself all of this time it's extraordinary, because I do not know that I'm that man. I do not know. I would probably be angry at the system, and I would be
the world.
Yeah, exactly. But he has continued to maintain the hopeful, charismatic person that he is. And again, that's why I'm committed because of the truth, but I'm also committed because of him. And I'm committed because of Paula, because this is not a fly by night thing for me. Obviously, I know it's not for you and or for Paul or for Temujin. Like this is, I like I said, I'm coming on sort of like I'm on the caboose now, trying to like get this thing past the finish line. But the example that you all have set has really, really helped me sort of um, calibrate my mission too. And I think that that's what it is that we all have to stand as examples for other people who want to, amplify this chorus of people that know he's innocent and he needs to be out. And so, like, I'm really, really hopeful that, by doing these things, that's what's going to happen. I'm very, very, very motivated, and I'm very, very, like, I believe it's going to happen, and I know we all do. But I really, really, we just have to continue to fight. We have to continue to yell and yell louder when necessary, and yell louder when necessary. And that's really, really sort of the point.
Absolutely. And, Temujin and I were just talking about that the other night. He called in on my show, and, we were just saying, that at the very least, we are bringing awareness. That is, even if it takes a while to get him out, the more people that know about his case, all you have to do is like hear about his case, and you're like, I'm in. How can I help? I'll sign a petition. All right, Gretchen Whitmer, like, what can I do? And that, it becomes like a more and more of an uprising. Like, let's all join together, and get this done, because they cannot ignore all of us forever.
Right.
We're not going to stop. Like, we're not going to go away.
Right.
And I think you're right. He's just such a wonderful person, which just makes it even more of a travesty. But one of the things he told me, I think it was maybe like 2 weeks ago when we were on the phone, he shared, that it's disgusting that he's in there because he's innocent, but also there is no consistency with cases, even within the same jail, within the same state, because he was telling me absolutely just repugnant things people did in his jail, and they are out, and they are nothing like one shot, not
Right.
to minimize Scott McCallum's death, because
Sure.
of course he didn't deserve to die, but you're talking about one shot, and you're talking about people who just, I'm not even going to repeat some of the things that some of these people did, and they're out in 10 years.
Right.
I think that's even more frustrating, because here's a man serving life. Not only is he innocent, but does the punishment even fit the crime when you're letting people out who have done things that are so much more grotesque?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a real problem, I think. Sentencing, I think, is pretty much up to the judges and the juries. And, with times, those things sort of shift and ebb and flow and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, no, there is no real standard for the way cases are handled. And, in Temujin's case in particular, there was no real standard for the way the case actually played out, because there were so many, as you mentioned earlier, there were so many egregious misses by his defense attorney. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm reading through the trial transcripts. I'm like, objection, objection. Like, I'm writing it all down, and I'm like, I'm not a lawyer, but there were clear, ineffective assistance of counsel throughout the whole trial. And we don't even have to get into the chatter about there was, the other stuff on the side, but like, just procedurally, there were a lot of problems there, tons of problems, like so many that if you open up the Pandora's box, you just cannot get away from them. But to your point, like, yes, there are so many inconsistencies. There are a lot of people that have been let out. There are a lot of people who did not deserve to be let out, while he continues to languish there. And he, again, like if you, I wish that we could, strap people up to a meter like they did when he passed his
Right.
polygraph, when the state refused to give him one, schedule it, and then decide they weren't going to give it to him at the last minute. And then, God bless Bill Proctor
I
for
know.
coming in and doing that. And him, he passed it, like, and, they all said, like, in my opinion, he didn't do that. I wish there was a machine that could actually go in and say, like, well, here's the productivity of this person when they come out, because I mean, he would be more productive than probably 95%, 99% probably of the people that are out here right now. And
Oh God, yeah.
and it's all because of his heart and how and obviously I didn't know him. I was almost 6 years old when he was arrested. So obviously I didn't know him then, but to a person, the people I've communicated with have said, he was a good guy. He helped people when they needed help. And it's just a real tragedy. And like, my heart is like, my heart breaks every day for him and Paula and everyone out there who's trying to get him, some semblance of justice. He'll never get justice. He's lost 40 years almost.
Right.
And Scott will never get justice either. But again, what we can hopefully do is, just like you said, raise awareness, make the crowd loud, and affect things like that. And this is a ground war at this point.
Yeah.
Being down there, and I've worked in broadcast media for over 20 years. That's not the way people consume content as much anymore. It is like you're doing YouTube. It is face to face. It is talking to people. We were at a place down in Chesterfield, Michigan, and thankfully the Tigers won that night, because it was Kerry Carpenter hit a 3-run homer that night in the top of the ninth, and everybody wanted to talk. And we had everybody at that bar. Well, not everybody, but we had like
because they were in a good mood.
They were in a good mood. Yeah,
Get out
exactly.
of my
But you gotta strike while the iron's hot. You have to get on the opportunity, and that's what happened. And I think we got a couple of really strong advocates out of that moment. And the more people that know about this, the more people that try to share the story, the more people that share the story and just look at it, the more people that are enraged that this could happen. This is an absolute overreach of what the government can do to you. Like, if they can jail him over nothing, they can jail any of us, right? So it's just really, really, it's just really, really concerning. And I'm joining in with you and Paula, and I see Dash in the chat. I mean, all of you guys who have been doing this far longer than I have. Like, my commitment is to just to do whatever I can possibly do, and lift him up, and keep us on the right path. And there are a lot of very good things, I think, momentum happening, I hope. And so we just continue to push for that. And I'm very, I'm encouraged. I'll say that.
Is Dash from a podcast?
Dash is one of Temujin's friends from 38 years ago. He's in the chat here.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I thought the name sounded familiar.
Yeah, Dash Deal.
Thank you so much for tuning in. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And right, he's told me about you. That's so awesome. I really appreciate that, and I know he does too. I
Yes,
think, one of the things that really just makes me hopeful, but also more infuriated, is the fact that Temujin has CIA, FBI, judges, lawyers, Muhammad Ali's daughter, like literally everyone. Like, okay, let's get him out. And I mean, what more? Who else can come out? Like, who else? It's
right,
I've never seen such a thing, and also I've never seen a case with so much evidence. I mean, it's not just like I didn't do it, I wasn't there. It is literally tangibles for everything. They have every document, every, printout
hmm
of every, each trial and each witness statement. And you can see absolutely everything. And like, what's happening?
right. Well, I think you're exactly right. I think that the obviously, if you look at the case, I think that's why there's so much support. I mean, you have prosecutors, like you said. I mean, not just attorneys, but prosecutors
Yeah.
who are saying this is an absolute like abandonment of justice. You have, like you said, there are celebrities that are or high profile people who have come out in support. There are so many people. you know the I think the issue is, which is difficult, is that, and I don't want to get on too much of a rant, but political money is pouring on to
Oh, yeah.
television, to radio, to billboard, all that stuff, right? But until there's some sort of active change in the polling, until people actually, like I said, this is a ground war, and that is a very, very tough thing to look at, because we have to activate people
Yeah.
to share their voices, and to share it in a way that is noticeable by either the governor through clemency, or find new evidence so that we can go through the CIU or the court system. Those are
Right.
things that are very, very, very important. So tactically, the sort of the short route is developing new evidence. So if anybody out there knows anything about Temujin, who was, Fred Freeman then, in Escanaba, Rock Escanaba area that day, please share it, because we have a new PI up there who I had the
Mhm.
pleasure of meeting last week. His name is Jim McNeil, Delta Force
Awesome.
investigation. He's phenomenal. They're very dialed in. So if there's anybody that has any information up there, please let them know. But then strategically, so that's sort of like the short goal. The strategically though, and it shouldn't be such a short goal, because once you tell anybody about this case, they all are like, what in the world's going on up there?
Yeah.
And so activating people to raise their voice in getting Temujin's case looked at is super, super important also, because if you threaten the base of power, if you threaten, and obviously I'm not saying this in some sort of nefarious way, I'm just saying, if you actually
Right.
raise your voice and you contest power will pay attention. And it's really super important that every single person on this chat, every single person that sees this YouTube video, goes and looks at Temujin's case, goes and sees how egregious it is, goes and reaches out to every person that they know and talks about it. Because if it could happen to him, it can happen to every single person here, there, and everywhere. And it's absolutely crazy to me. It enrages me that we even have to have this conversation. While you're lovely and I'm happy to be here, it enrages me that we are having this conversation on this basis, because he absolutely deserves to be free. He absolutely did not do this. And it makes me, I mean, it upsets me quite a bit. I've spent a lot of time, I've got hundreds of pages of files, and here, looking at this case and just saying, like, what, like,
Mhm.
question mark, objection, crazy, weak, like so
Right.
much of that stuff across this case. And then not only just the trial, but then everything that happened after that.
Yeah.
The absolute continuance of miscarriage of justice for the last 37 years after he was convicted is an abomination.
Is
Like, I
it?
cannot believe how horrendous Temujin has been done in this time, and the rights that they've taken from him, and the rights he's fought for. And I think, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm getting on such a tangent, and
Oh no,
I let my fire take over a little bit. I can do this, but also the fact that they've taken so much away from him while he's continued
yeah.
to fight for other people, and it just drives me mad. And I am the least person it should drive mad. Certainly, it should drive him the most mad. Certainly, it should drive Paul the most mad, and they are. I'm coming into this late, but I mean, damn it, I am so sick and tired of sitting back here and being quiet. And that's why I'm thankful for people like you and Jack Lawrence and Brett Nowles from the prosecutors, and Maggie Freeling, and Aaron and Justin from Generation Y. Like, all the people that put the story out before me, and I know I'm forgetting some, but all the people that put the story out before what little bit I can do, I'm so thankful that they did, because I learned from them first. And it's I'm sorry I get so I'm just like I get raw
No, I'm
about
the
it.
same way. I'm the same way. They're used to it with me. Yeah, I've had Maggie on the show. I've had Jack on the show. So
Yeah,
and we all we do is talk about Temujin. You know what I mean?
right.
Because it's one of the things Jack was on about maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and one of the things that we were ranting about is the jury.
Yeah,
And not necessarily a fault of their own, but especially in this case, they were not aware of things. They
right,
were not given accurate descriptions of what
right.
their job really was. They weren't told about the whole reasonable doubt thing.
Mhm.
They were, the way that they were talked to, they were very unclear, as we know now by the one gentleman who was on the jury who was interviewed and said, I don't think I made the right decision.
Right.
Um, so Jack and I were kind of talking about, is it better to not have a jury or to have a jury and just make sure they're like totally informed? And I know this is kind of like conjecture and not like
Yeah.
really in depth at this point, but do you think that jury, like maybe if that jury was just more educated and given clearer instructions?
I mean, I think if the facts had been given to them as they actually stand, I
Right.
think if the Philip Joplin, and when the jury was polled, some of them, a couple of them said that the Joplin testimony swayed them. Some of them said they thought the Plain testimony swayed them, not knowing that the pilot was tied into Robert Cleveland.
Right.
And so there were things in that trial that I think had they been placed, it had the facts, the actual facts, not the facts as they were presented, facts as they were presented. Had the facts been presented, there is no way on earth, I believe, that he would have been convicted. I
Yeah.
just cannot believe that people would set aside actual facts. Now, what we know is that Temujin's defense attorney did not do the job he was assigned to do.
Right.
He hurt more than he helped, right?
Yeah.
So you had a good storyteller on one side who made people believe, like you said earlier, um, you know, throwing out weapons that didn't have anything to do with the crime at all. Like he was shot with a shotgun, right? He was shot with a shotgun. They threw out these weapons that were not at all confiscated, and then you had a weak defense on the other side of it. So you had sort of like this perfect storm of absolute injustice and like Temujin didn't have a chance because the system screwed him. They screwed him over. And I don't, obviously I wasn't in the jury then, I didn't hear everything. So I don't know how it came across in the courtroom, but it's hard for me to blame the jury based on the absolute aberration of defense that Temujin had, plus this person who was pulling out all the stops, making up things, and then getting away with it all. There was no discipline in the process, and that's the thing that's really, really concerning, is that if we can be this clumsy, this absolutely clumsy with the way that we conduct our criminal justice system, nobody is safe. Nobody is safe. And that's the problem for me, because, I have a lot of love for law enforcement. I've worked with many of them for many years. I work for the Prosecutors Podcast as their editor. And they came out very strongly. They said that this was their most, the thing that they think is the most clear case of innocence that they've ever looked at, that they looked at as a wrongful conviction. And obviously they're prosecutors. If we were this, if we abandon the system this much, I don't understand how we can trust anything. It is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And and Matt, I agree with you. The jury, I think the jury got it wrong, but I will say, I think that probably there were things there that they just couldn't get over. And the fact they let in the Joplin testimony and he got inducements later, and then he recanted, and then there was no, we're just going to let that go. And then, there's a plane, and now the plane doesn't matter anymore all of a sudden. And I promise you can't make that drive. There's so much here. And and Carly's heard me talk about this, and I don't know if Jill has. Jill's a friend of mine too. It makes me incensed that this is where we're at, and that's all the more reason that if we share these, if we share our voices, that we might get some action. And again, Paula leads the charge, and I follow her lead, and I hope I haven't said anything that would make her upset tonight.
Oh no, she knows me. Nobody says more. Nobody curses more, and nobody gets more mad.
Right. But that's good to know.
I think one of the other things is, for people who are watching who may not be familiar with Temujin's case, I think it's really important to understand that this was 40 years ago. This was not true crime time. Right. This was now, if this happens, jurors are going to be like, you know what? That's messed up. I saw that on a podcast, and they said that should be thrown out, or something. That was pre-internet. That was podcast. That was, people were not educated about such things as they are now. So we have to give the jury some slack as far as that goes as well. But, like I said, one of the gentlemen who was on the jury was interviewed, and it stuck with him that he doesn't think he made the right decision. And he kind of pushed back, and then he thought, well, you know what, I'm the only one, so I guess I'm wrong, because it's 11 other people think he's guilty. So, and kind of turned into that group think. And unfortunately, I mean, I wish it would have been like a hung jury, but it wasn't. And, you know, Temujin just deserves justice. I talked to him about an Alfred plea. They do not have that in Michigan. Um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but I wanted to ask him. He said he would consider it, but it's not in Michigan. Then he said, you know, Joy, I will literally write a statement right now that says I will not sue for damages. I won't seek money. I just want to go home to my wife and my puppies. And
Yeah.
that's what breaks my heart the most, because he's not even seeking vengeance for the hell they are putting him through. He's just like, you know what? I just want to go home.
Yeah, no, and that speaks a lot to his character, because
It does.
I can promise you I'd not be as nice
I'd be
about it.
out that courthouse with picket signs like, you ruined my life.
Right, right. No, yeah, I would raise hell on the way out. But yeah, I mean, it took the jury. You know, they did. I think it was 5 votes. So it split.
Yeah.
But the other thing too to take into account is that the system is slow, and people just want to go home sometimes, and they're just like, I'm just gonna like
holidays sometimes.
Yeah, it's just like, well, I mean, but again, like, you get to go home.
Yeah.
Temujin, or Fred at the time, didn't get to go home.
Yeah.
And you're sentencing somebody for, again, a crime he could not have committed in any, I don't care what physics, you put it in on this earth, he couldn't have done it. And so it's just really, really, really troubling that that's where we were. And, I think, I agree with you. I don't think that there's no way this plays out the same way nowadays.
No.
It just doesn't work that way. But again, the problem is, like, justice is supposed to be steady. Like, it's supposed to be steady. Like, it's supposed to be blind. It's supposed to be, like, consistent. The problem with a lot of this is it's not consistent. It's not consistent anywhere, right?
Yeah.
You have all of these different variables and all that stuff, and okay, fine, it's a human system. But it's insane to me, again, like, any other case than this, I might be willing to relent a little bit. Not this one. Like, I'm not, I'm not fighting for this guy. I know you probably wouldn't be. I know all the people that have probably talked to you and that have done the case. The case would not have been interesting if there was some reason to not doubt it. Like, if there was an absolute inconceivable. The proof is there everywhere, and it just, oh my gosh, I just get so hot thinking about it. And I've been talking again. I like you and everybody else. I just talk to everybody that listen to it about it, because it is a grave injustice, and not just on his rights, but on all of our rights, because we all have to be on guard if this is the way it's going to be. It absolutely undermines the fabric of our society and our justice system, the fact that he could go to prison for this, period.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of my biggest concerns present day is his health. And the fact that they are not giving him his treatments, they are not even giving him his over-the-counter vitamins. He was telling me he's picking dandelion out in the yard to get some vitamins. Like, it's violent. It is. There's no other word. It's violent what they're doing to him. And I think that's one of the most upsetting things presently, because not only is everything unjust, the fact that he's even in there, but now you're torturing him. You're making him, deal with something on a, to the nth degree on top of it. There's one woman who is in there with him, who they won't even let her have her wheelchair, and she has mold growing out of her ears, and like all this atrocious stuff. And that's legal. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, while I can't talk about, I don't know any of those things. I can't talk about those things specifically. I think that certainly there are injustices that are happening, and there is, first of all, I'll just speak to Temujin just because that's what I know. The fact that he's in there is an injustice. The fact that he has been denied certain things that he needs is an injustice. I think I get really passionate, but I think my sort of tack right now is to try to redirect the conversation, reframe the conversation in a way that we can provide some sort of productive solutions. And the issue is it has to be a conversation. That means there needs to be two parties in it, right?
Right.
It can't just be us shouting. What we need now is the state to actually come to the table and listen to us. And I am hopeful that will happen at this point. Who knows at this rate? But there is, I think there is momentum in the conversations in Michigan right now. And so that is a very, very important step for us. It's the first step of many, but there are productive conversations that I think will lead us to a place where they swing that gate open and let him out. But there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage. And if he got out tomorrow, it does not mean the voices have to be silenced. It does not mean the voices have to stop crying out, because again, that will be one step in the right direction for others who have been basically caged up for things that they did not do. And again, I don't think that's everybody or most people. I think many of them are in there for a reason. And that does not make me think less of them. They made mistakes. They're probably younger, all that, all that stuff. Like, my heart is with people getting better as people. And I just know that the guy I know, Temujin Kensu, this guy right here, is a good man. And he loves people. And he gives to people. And he loves Paula. And he loves puppies.
He does.
And he loves Dash. He's told me he loves Dash. He loves you.
He tells me, and I'm like, I feel it. And he knows I love him too. And I do anything to help.
You can't help but love the guy.
I know.
But that's why it's so important that people that love him back continue to fight and keep that productive conversation going. And I know, like, I'm stepping into this late, so I know, like, your frustration level is probably higher than mine is. I'm just trying to play, like, I'm a media guy. Like, I'm trying to, like, bob and weave a little bit here and there and just, like, diplomatically do things. Just because that's been my life for the last 20, 23, 22 years. But like, I see a path through diplomacy for them to save face, and for them to, like, acknowledge and do the right thing, and for them to look like they're winners. And even though it's 40 years, him to be freed, as a winner, which is BS, but you know what I mean? Like, right. I feel like there is
out, like, they can spin it any way they want.
Like, my thing is, like, there is, I feel like there is a way to create some sort of real example for the way these things should be handled when they are such an absolute travesty of justice. Like, I hope that's the case. I don't know it is. I'm working just like you are to help free him in what little ways I can do. We all have our different skills. And so I'm trying to utilize mine as best I can. But I am, I try to muzzle myself when I might say something I shouldn't say. So I'm doing the best I can with what I have to work with.
I don't know really how to do that. I try, but the problem is I've been
Well, that's the
doing
good
this
thing.
show for 8 years, and I started as an activist, so which I still am, but I started there. So
But that's the great.
I'm
That's
not
the
like
great
a
thing.
trained journalist. I was an English major and stuff like that, but that's what I did for years before I
Mhm.
started, interviewing Temujin and stuff. I would just talk about issues and get in the streets, and now I'm just kind of looking at it in a different way, putting that humanity towards it,
Yes.
so yeah, I mean, he's changed my life, and I tell him
Sure.
that, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm blushing." But like, he has, and I
Yes.
don't think I'm the only one who can say that.
This guy right here, he's changed my life. Here's something I'll tell you that I think is really, really interesting. So we're in the middle of an election year right now. It's what, 2 weeks from Tuesday. And to a person, we met people from all political ideologies up in Michigan, right?
Right.
To a person, when we talked about Temujin, they all said he should be free.
Sure.
So if there is one conversation that the country can get on board with, it's this one.
Absolutely.
If the state of Michigan ignores that, it is they're leaving the chair from the leadership position, because this is absolutely something that everybody can get on board with, that we talk with. So I just think that it's really, really, I think they have an opportunity, really, to stand up for what's right. Something that I think, if anybody looks at the case, and obviously I don't know, they may not even look at it, but I'm going to give a little bit more faith, based on recent conversations, that maybe they will. Right. But then I go in the same mode, like I go into like I've been tonight, screaming, waving my arms and all that stuff. But I want to believe that because the problem with government, and a lot of times, is that there's a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
And then the last person takes on what the other person says to
right.
hands them, and you do this and you do that and all that stuff. And it's just like almost any job. The problem is, any other job, you're building widgets or whatchamacallits or all that. You're not dealing with people's lives,
right,
who deserve review, especially when everything that you're looking at tells you made a mistake 40 years ago, 10 election cycles ago.
Yeah.
You made a mistake. You screwed up. So you can actually be a person, if you don't care about getting elected again, you can be a person who stands up for what's right, and you could be on the right side of history, or you can decide to continue on with your job and cower. Yeah. And the problem is, most people just want to keep their job. They don't want to stand up for what's right, because it will ruin them. But guess what? You ruined Temujin by putting him in prison for a crime he didn't commit.
Exactly.
So cry me a river.
Yep. Absolutely. And
I'm going to run for governor of Michigan.
What's that?
I'm going to run for governor of Michigan now.
Yes. I don't live there. I'm in Pennsylvania, but you have my vote in theory.
Awesome. We'll slide you in somewhere on the sly.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for joining me tonight. And I
Well,
am
thank you so much.
so proud and happy that you went to Michigan and had that discussion with so many locals, because that is huge. Where can people find you? What give your socials, your website, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my main show, again, I started as a true crime satirist, which is santamaybe.com. You can find that at Santa Maybe at most channels. I think Santa Maybe a criminal podcast, I think, on Facebook. I'm less active there because I've been more into this. I just launched a new show called Missing in a Moment, which is a true crime missing persons podcast. Our first case was Morgan Nick, who recently the FBI uh, identified the suspect in her disappearance conclusively. And then, of course, this podcast will be Inconceivable, the story of Temujin Kensu. And that is not without great respect to Scott Macklin, because his story will be shared as well, because I do want to make sure that we share his story. And obviously, there is a lot more out there for me to go on with Temujin, because there are so many issues and there's so much, so many court documents. But I just want to say for the group, my heart is with Temujin and Paula and Joy and all the advocates out there that are continuing to fight. And I love you, buddy. We're working to get you out, and you have a lot of people behind you. And I think that's it.
Absolutely. I am so glad I got to speak with you. And thank you guys so much for watching. Smash the like button, smash subscribe. I am still going to try to go see Temujin. It's, it's kind of up in the air when, but I cannot wait to see him in person. And I know having visitors is such a huge thing for him, and he enjoys it so much. So I cannot wait to see him. So that will be coming up hopefully in the near future. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching. Monday, I have Rathbone, who you may know from TikTok. He has like 20 million something likes now. It kind of blew up. It was crazy. And tomorrow I'm taking off because this is my 5th show in a row. And doing that many shows each week is kicking my ass. So tomorrow I'm off. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, check out Jason's, links and socials. If you want to hit up Gretchen Whitmer, we would definitely appreciate it. The only thing I'll say, and it was not easy for me, is be respectful, be nice, do not curse, do not get angry, just ask for justice. I kind of copied and pasted one of Paula's because I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go off. So just do it respectfully. But yeah, every single person, if everyone listening does that, it would be rad. So thank you guys so much. And again, thank you so much, Jason. It was so great
Of course.
to meet you.
Oh my gosh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and you're awesome. So.
Oh, you are as well. Thanks so much. Stick around,
Okay.
guys.